Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to express my deepest gratitude to Professor Mock. She invited me to be invited speaker here, and I learned a lot from her. Last 10 years, we are working together, and I'm learning a lot from Professor Mock. I don't know how to express my real gratitude to her. She is my mentor. Until today, I'm learning actually. She's a great professor. She's an example in my life, honestly, and I try my best to follow her. I hope I can be humble like Professor Mock. Yeah, I hope so. So, thank you very much, Prof, for inviting me and giving me a chance to give a talk, long talk. Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you. So, in this presentation, actually, I would like to talk about the systematic research approach of model development and validation in higher education. Actually, this presentation, I will talk based on my own experience. Actually, last 8 years, I'm conducting research. I'm doing a lot of experiment. So based on my own research experience, I will show you what are the systematic approach we need to follow when we try to develop and validate a new model or theory. So it's a long presentation, you may need to be a little bit patient. So before starting with this, I would like to explain briefly the concept or definition of research. Actually, based on my 8 years experience, I just get published the contemporary definition of research is the logical integration of ideas. Actually, why I said here logical integration of ideas, because when I conducted so many workshops in Malaysia last 8 years, I found so many PhD master students, they're having difficulties. Some of them, they don't have idea, they don't know what kind of research they should do. And some of them, they have idea, but they don't know how to integrate their idea. Even they don't know their idea is logical or not. So when I did a lot of research, I found, yeah, actually the problem is there. Students, researchers, they may need to know how to integrate their ideas within a logical framework. That's why my definition was the contemporary definition of research is the logical integration of ideas. I believe if you have an idea is logical, and which you know how to integrate your ideas within a framework, that might be the fruitful research. If you look at the picture, it slightly looks like an apple. Do you know why I put it? I believe research is like a fruit. Apple is sweet, right? If it is good and sweet on, everybody likes, right? It will be fruitful. It will be tasty. So research exactly should be like that. If you know your research very well and you are able to integrate your ideas within a logical framework, it will be fruitful. It will make a meaningful sense, which could be applied in your real life research, and other people could be applied your theory or model in their own research in the different context. But now you need to know how to integrate ideas within a logical framework. That's why I say you need to follow the systematic approach. So what are the approach you need to follow? I believe we should have two types of approach: theoretical approach and methodological approach. Actually, theoretical approach is to develop a theory or model. That is based on the theoretical approach. And how you will learn the theoretical approach? Based on the literature review. When you do the extensive literature review, you will see what are the gaps. If your target is to develop a new theory, then you need to find out huge gap. Of course, you need to do some experiment. You should have that kind of skill. Otherwise, you may not be able to do that. This is the challenge of developing new model. But if you want to extend existing theory, that is fine. You need to have at least minimum contribution in your research based on the literature review. You will see, and that gap must be logical. You should have that kind of logic to understand that gap is logical or not. And you know, logic will come to the mathematical background. It is linked up with the methodology. It's too important. The methodological background, then you will be critical, you will be logical. When you look at the paper, you might be understand. You will know easily where are the gaps. So based on the literature review, you will follow the theoretical approach to develop the theory and model, which will integrate the ideas of research based on the theory. But you don't know your theory, which is you are going to apply or extend or propose new theory, it is valid or not, you don't know. Based on the theoretical approach, we never can claim our theory or model is valid or not. That's why we need to follow another kind of approach. That is, I call the methodological approach. So methodological approach is to validate the theory or model using appropriate analytical tools which can provide the findings of research. Here, some key points. I say appropriate analytical tools. Actually, if you look at the statistical tools, there are so many. We can see there will be HLM, structural equation modeling, Rush model, CAT, computer adaptive testing, so on. There are so many methodological tools, statistical analytical tools that exist, but you don't know which tool is appropriate for your research. So you may need to know which statistical analytical tool is appropriate to test your theory or model. If you are not able to do that, then you might be failed. You don't know. This is the challenge. When I look at the existing research, published research, even when I review the SCCI journal articles from the SCCI journals, I found a huge gap. Because many researchers, they analyze their data, they use the statistical tool, but there is a missing of systematic approach that is linked up with theoretical approach as well as methodological approach. So researchers should know what kind of methodological approach should be applied, what kind of statistical tools should be applied to validate that theory or model. Whatever, if you want to extend, you need to also find out appropriate analytical tools. If you want to validate, also, if you want to develop and validate like a new theory, also you have to know. So in my case, I will show you, as an example, I will show you the technology adoption and gratification model, which I have developed and validated and published in 2016 based on 3 existing models. 2 of them I published. One published 2014, technology satisfaction model. Another one, online database adoption and satisfaction model, I published in 2011. And I also included Davis theory, technology acceptance model, which was published in 1989. It's quite popular theory around the world, but that theory doesn't talk about the gratification. It is talking about the actually technology acceptance. So as an example, I will use that tag model so that you might be able to understand how did I develop and validate the technology adoption and gratification model in with a systematic research approach. Actually, this is the technology adoption and gratification model. You can say tag model. I'm not going to explain detail now. Later slide I will show you. This is the model you can see. Actually, here I have many constructs. Actually, computer self-efficacy is the down here, the keywords. Maybe you can see it clearly. The computer self-efficacy, perceived usefulness, perceived ease of use, intention to use, gratification, and here the use is the multidimensional, which has 3 sub-dimensions like lectures. Actually, this model was developed and validated in assessing lectures. Lectures means Malaysian and Chinese lectures, technology adoption and gratification in using ICT facilities for their teaching, research, and learning purposes in higher education. So, of course, I need to discover what are the purposes they are doing. I predicted that, of course, use must be the multidimensional, although other theories, they never claim it. And in my model also I found, yes, lecturers are using ICT facilities for their academic purpose and teaching purpose, research purpose. This is the new contribution in my model. I think no one is talking about the research purposes, how lecturers are using ICT facilities or technology in their research purposes. So I will explain later on the advantage of having a new model, how it works, how it could be meaningful, how it can give you benefit to you, benefit to your research. Actually, this is not limited within the technological area. Whatever area you are doing research, if you really know the systematic research approach, I can guarantee you, you might be able to develop and validate a wonderful model which might be applied by the other researchers researchers. As going on right now, this model has been applied in the 10 countries also. I have collaboration with so many countries, and Professor Mok is my research partner. We are also publishing together. Yeah, we submitted also a CCI paper under review. So this is the wonderful thing you would have if you really follow the systematic research approach, I do believe. So now you see how I follow the theoretical approach to develop this theory. Forget about the validation. So firstly, I look at the technology acceptance model. As I said, it proposed by Davis in 1989. Actually, this theory is frequently has been used until today. It has more than 13,000 citations. The most popular theory in information system area is it is from the Harvard University, published by MIS Quarterly. It's the top journal. Yeah, but you see the model differences. Davis claimed that technology acceptance influenced or measured by the perceived usefulness and perceived ease of use. Once technology is very useful and easy to use, user will accept technology for their, could be teaching or learning or whatever it is. It could be research also. However, this TAM, technology acceptance model TAM, ignored the two intrinsic motivation attributes, namely computer self-efficacy and also gratification. You can see there is no involvement. That's why I did a lot of experiment. Actually, before claiming the TAG model, I come up with another two models you will see. Yeah, it took 6 years actually to claim that model, even in publish it. It's a long journey, but I did it. So you see, so here the gap I have already. So now I did the experiment. How did I experiment? Let's see. So firstly, my intention is like this. I want to confirm these three factors individually will measure technology satisfaction or gratification, the same meaning, and also individually will measure the technology acceptance or adoption. That was my prediction. Yeah, that was my big challenge. So when I come up with this model, Professor Sahari from Malaysia, best professor, he rejected me. He said, no, it can be, you changed a lot. I'm sorry. I'm worried about it, how it will work. You know, it was my master thesis theoretical framework, and it was rejected. So Professor Sahari asked me to use another model. You will see next slide. So he didn't allow me to use this model. He was scared it will work or not, because in the literature I couldn't find any justification for the relationship between computer self-efficacy and satisfaction mediated by perceived ease of use and usefulness. No one is talking about this. And also no one is talking about the direct relationship between computer self-efficacy, perceived usefulness, computer self-efficacy and perceived ease of use, and also perceived ease of use and usefulness, direct relationship with the satisfaction. Because in this model I got a 6 hypotheses, but slightly I justify. Then I finally in 2014 I published this model, technology satisfaction model. Yes, so after publishing this, I got the justification. I have my own assessment and I justified all kind of relationship. So once you have a theoretical framework, you might be able to construct your objective, hypothesis, everything from here. I give you an example. For example, what could be the objective? For example, the broad objective is, I have 40 minutes. Okay. Yeah, right? Right, bro? Invited space is 40 minutes. Is that okay? It's okay. Actually, it's long. I say, so my broad objective is to develop and validate the technology satisfaction model. If you have a specific objective, what could be? The specific objective is to measure the direct relationship between computer self-efficacy and perceived ease of use. Similarly, to measure the direct relationship between computer self-efficacy and perceived usefulness. Similarly, you can also construct, you can measure also other objectives. And hypothesis how is easy. Computer self-efficacy will have a direct influence on perceived ease of use and perceived usefulness. However, the indirect hypothesis, computer self-efficacy will have indirect influence on satisfaction mediated by perceived ease of use and perceived usefulness. So if you have a theoretical framework, you don't need to look at anything. You know your work. Based on the model, you can explain everything. When you validate the model, you will see the graphical view. So that model will explain your whole research. You don't need to. Nowadays, we don't read the paper. We just immediately look at the model and we understand the findings. We can see the gap of the model. We can figure out everything. Yeah. So this is my technology satisfaction model. I got some justification here. Then 2011, I published this model. It's an online database adoption and satisfaction model. I did experiment. This theory we could measure satisfaction, right? But I ignore the intention to use, which leads to measure the technology adoption or acceptance. So this model, I could measure the technology acceptance and also technology satisfaction together. But I didn't generalize the tag model because it's challenging. Still, I need to do some experiment. In this model, I claim, this was my master thesis actually, and I published from Germany as a book. This was online database adoption and satisfaction model actually. So this model gives me a lot of benefit to claim my tag model. So later on, I combined my two models, an existing model, the Davis one. Finally, I claim the technology adoption and gratification model. This is the theoretical approach, how I did it. Actually, recently Professor Mike, the ETRD, one of the top journal chief editor, he came to my university. I met him in Malaysia. So he said, actually, very rare to see a theory which was developed and validated based on a lot of experiments. Because most of the researchers, they don't have time to do a lot of experiments. So in my case, I'm lucky that I got enough time to do a lot of experiment, and based on my own experiment, I was able to propose the tag model, and which is valid finally. So this is the theoretical approach, how I follow. Actually, I have so many things to explain that I will go a little fast, okay? So you can see this is the tag model, the structure. I have the actually sub-dimensions of use. Actually, this is called the first order factor. Including this, we call the second order factor. If you know the structural equation modeling, you might be able to know. And this is my, this is actually exogenous variable. It means independent variable. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, these three mediating variable, and this 2 is a endogenous variable, means dependent variable. And in this model, I constructed 22 hypotheses, because I don't want later on researcher will criticize and say this model didn't measure this kind of relationship or that kind of relationship. I don't want that. That's why I tested all kind of hypotheses. And I found this model is valid, is strong. You see, but before testing, validating this model using an appropriate analytical tool, I didn't know this model will work or not. But based on the literature and based on my existing model, I was confident that it might be worked. It might be worked because I have enough justification, and my finding shows relationship could be according to my expectation or prediction. So now you see how I follow the methodological approach. I'm here going to finish the theoretical approach, how I follow the theoretical approach to develop this theoretical framework, develop this model, or develop this theory. So now next slide, you see what are the methodological approach I applied to validate the model. Of course, for validation, I'm not going to explain here. Is the common, you must need to do it. Actually, this model I also validated using Rush model. And later on also I used the EFA because I wanted to explore the underlying factors of use, because Rush couldn't explore the underlying factor of use. It gives only one factor. But my target to explore the underlying factors of use. That's why later on I used the EFA. After EFA, of course, I used the 3 stages of structural equation modeling, namely conformity factor analysis, to validate the measurement model, and also use the full-fledged structural equation modeling to estimate the structural model, to test the causal relationship among the constructs and also hypotheses. And finally, I also use the invariance analysis because I developed and validated this model in assessing Malaysian and Chinese lectures ICT use. So I must need to do the invariance analysis. But today's presentation, I'm not going to show it because I'm going to show you how to only develop and validate the model based on the systematic approach. So you see how I did it. Actually, I need to validate each construct separately. That's why we call, this is the perceived usefulness, you know. In my model, I have many constructs, right? So I need to validate each one individually because I don't know it will work or not. Some people, they did together without doing this, sometimes is risky. After individual analysis for each construct, then we can integrate together and test the conversion and discriminant validity. After that, we can test the structural model. Anyway, so this is the one-factor measurement model of perceived usefulness. How I claim this model is valid? Actually, this model was tested using not only these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items. No, it was initially it was run with 16 items, but I dropped many items because to validate the model. And how I claim this model is valid or not? Based on the fit indices. This called the fit indices. So according to structural equation model, in chi-square divided by degree of freedom should be smaller than 3 or 5. P-value should be greater than 0.05, but is rare to get it unless you have very large sample size. It's not a big deal, you can keep it. And RMSA is the most important fit indices. RMSA actually root mean square error approximation. It should be smaller than 0.08. It measures the error of the model. When you have a theory, that theory should reduce the error. In social science research, we have a lot of error, you know. Our intention to reduce the error. This is the wonderful thing of structural equation modeling. It will allow you to reduce the error of the model. So the accuracy of findings will be very good, and findings might be able to generalize, you know. That is the good thing. So, and CFI and TLI should be greater than 0.90. So if you look at the fit indices, overall fit indices showed a satisfactory fit to the empirical data. Then the next one, actually these are the loadings of the items, and this is the error variance. It is indicating the individual reliability of the item, and this is the regression weight. The loading, it should be greater than 0.50. If it is 0.70, that is excellent. It doesn't matter. So based on those statistical values, I can claim that this model is valid. Similarly, I also validate the one-factor measurement model of computer self-efficacy. You can see the overall fit indices, show a satisfactory fit, and so loadings all are significant, error variance, all of them fine. Because actually, when you look at these values, shouldn't be any, we say, unexpected values, like shouldn't be negative, shouldn't be too low, it makes problem. Yeah, so all loadings are significant. Yeah, so using the same strategies, I also validate the one-factor measurement model of perceived ease of use. I'm not going to explain detail because time is too limited. I need maybe 3 hours. In the workshop, I use all those things long space I do, because here time is too limited. So same strategy also here. You can look at the fit indices is fine. Then also loadings, error variance, no problem. It's a one-factor measurement model of gratification. I also validated. Then one-factor measurement model of intention to use. Then now, here's something interesting. Because you remember my theoretical framework, I have sub-dimensions of use. Yeah, and this is called the first-order factor. Many researchers still they are doing mistake, because when you want to confirm the underlying factor of any construct, firstly you need to test the first order factor, because they're the first order factors. Yeah, and after that you have to test the second order factor. Then you might be able to know this use is a multidimensional. This model will confirm that use is multidimensional, and those constructs are loaded under the use. That is will be the second order factor. So this is the first order factor, is the 3-factor measurement model of academic research and teaching purposes. So this model also similarly, same technique I used to validate based on the fit indices, and also based on these are the loadings, error variance, and here the interesting thing. Because they are using ICT for many purposes, right? And of course should be correlated, like interrelationship among the constructs. So here is the double-headed arrow is measuring the interrelationships among the constructs. And those interrelationships, all of them are significant. It means those constructs are interrelated and they are measuring the use of ICT. Yeah, they confirm the first order factor of ICT use. After that, I tested if researchers they they stop assessment here, I don't think so they can make sure that those three factors are loaded under the ICTUs. I don't think so, it is impossible. We must need to test the second order factor. Yeah, this is the second order factor. Here you can see these three factors loaded under the use of ICT. And you can see the beta, means path coefficient actually. And based on the path coefficient, you can see which factor is the most important in measuring use of ICT. Yeah, you see the weaknesses, you see the research. The beta means the path coefficient is very low compared to the academic purpose and also the teaching purpose, right? And another thing, these are the variance actually. The variance. So teachers, lecturers are using ICT actually teaching purpose more compared to the academic and research purpose. And this is my prediction that still lecturers are using ICT facilities for their research purpose very less. And this model proved. You see, if you look at this value, this research purpose can measure only 14%. Can you imagine? Only 14%. Actually, my university, the Malaysian one, where I work, that is the best university in Malaysia, top research university, world ranking one. So they wanted to do the assessment to explore how to encourage lecturers to do a lot of research. Why our research productivity is not that high? What is the problem? And ICT is playing really significant role in improving the productivity of research, as I proved through different research. So when I did this kind of assessment, this assessment also shows that research, productivity research is still low because only it can measure 40%. Still lecturers are using ICT facilities in conducting research less compared to the other purposes, academic and teaching purposes. So this is the second order factor of ICT use. After that, what I did, I integrated all the models together to test my hypothesized tag model. And let's see how it works. I hope it is clear. I'm sorry it's not very clear, the projector, but at least I can explain. Actually, this was my hypothesized model. You remember I showed you the tag model? Actually, this is the graphical view of the MOS, you know. I use the MOS software to analyze. This is the technology adoption and gratification model. And something is interesting here, you can see. If you look at the fit indices above, fit indices, overall fit indices are fine. They fulfill the statistical requirement. But if you look at the beta, these are the actually path coefficient. The beta, few of them is lower than the recommended value. EP value is smaller than 0.05. So I found some hypotheses, very few hypotheses are not valid. At the same time, when I look at the output of MOs, I found some items are cross-loaded, indicating high modification indices. Do you know why? Our idea is what? Good theory will measure the construct and item separately. Our idea is these items will follow the respective construct. That is called conversion validity. If these items are not following to the respective construct, it doesn't make sure the conversion validity. We don't want that. That theory is not good. It means what I want to measure, I couldn't measure. It has noise, error. So when I look at the output, I found few items are correlated, highly correlated, indicating high modification indices. That's why I revised this model. Actually, that is the strategy of validating the model, because many researchers, they don't do that. They individually maybe validate and directly come up with the model, but 3 more minutes. Never mind, I'm going to finish. Yeah. So I'm going to show that approach. So what they do, they directly come up with the model and claim it. But I'm quite sure, based on my huge experience, it will never work your model what you predicted initially. You must need to revise. That is our experience. Yeah, I did analysis for more than 1,000 PhD students. I found no models are working with the initial steps, how we predict. We must need to revise to have a good model. That's why I revised this model. So after dropping few items, those items are highly correlated. And you know, I dropped the items not together. I had to figure it out which items is more problematic, which item is sharing with other items more frequently. Yeah, so in a time, one by one, I drop the items. So after dropping few items, I found this model is valid. This model is valid. This hypothesis, proposed hypothesis, all of them valid. Fit indices also valid, and the relationship beta, all of them significant. And also we can see the variance, how many percent can measure the ICT use, how many percent can measure gratification and intention, perceive usefulness and perceive ease of use. So you can see how did I validate the model. At the beginning I show you how did I develop the model based on the systematic approach and including my models. Later on I test my model using structural equation modeling. So I believe that is the systematic approach. When you want to claim a new theory, I think you should do the same kind of works. Then you might be able to publish in the top journal, I'm sure. And if any one of you are interested in reading this paper, I can email it to you. It's not open access. Yeah, and I'm really happy that based on this model, I'm also publishing SSCIP papers. Yeah, I'm applying other countries, and a few of them also under review. I'm quite satisfied with my assessment, although it took a long time. Actually, this was my PhD research, I took 6 years to publish this paper, to conclude this assessment, but I did my PhD within 2 years, because before PhD I did a lot of experiment. I was ready. I went to University Malawi with my own idea, and I talked to my supervisor. I said, I have my concrete idea. I don't want to change it. You may need to promise me that you will not bother me. You will let me finish. Yeah, because no one has done in Malaysia PhD within 2 years except me. Last 100 years, no one did it. Because I did experiment. I did experiment. I know how it could be worked. I have all kind of strategies, all kind of skills. I give you one tips. If you want to be good researchers, learn research during your master studies. If any one of your master students, that is the most appropriate time to gain the skills of research. I did it. I gained all kind of research skills during my master studies. Then PhD, just I apply and I finished quickly. Writing, it didn't take time actually. I spent less than a year to finish my PhD thesis. But officially it has to be 2 years, otherwise I will be kicked out. Maybe I'm abnormal, they will think. So this is the assessment. You can see that this is the fruitful, the concept of my research definition. This is the apple concept. So if you really follow the systematic approach, then you will enjoy your fruits forever. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is time for discussion. Have any question or comment? Any question or comment for Dr. Sky? Yes, Dr.
Thank you, Dr. Sky, for your excellent presentation. I would like to know whether you would consider other variables in the future.
Yeah. I recommend it. My under process field papers, I recommend to include few more constructs, because few constructs could make this model stronger than this. Yes, because now new research are coming. Even I'm trying to explore the underlying factors of computer self-efficacy. Like Taiwan professor is talking about that. I think it's very important to figure it out. In my paper, I recommended it.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof.